Welcome, everybody, to Matt Bajerski Live. Welcome to a deep dive. Welcome to, I guess, the podcast tonight is a deep dive into those deeper thoughts that we have when we have time to talk, when we have time to talk to ourselves in that beautiful moment. Very rare these days, but just them moments where you ask a question. And who are you asking? Are you asking God? That's really interesting. Are you asking the universe? Are you asking if you believe in angels and guides and so on? Who are you asking? Could you be asking your higher self? Could your higher self be connected to all that we deem as angels and God? Could we simply not argue with the fact that we are all part of this huge cosmos? And, to differentiate between the thought of a brain, the processing of the computer brain, the chat GBT now, that you ask it any question and it gives you an answer, very similar to your own brain, really. But the only answer you're going to get is your experience and what you've learned. That's it, really. Chat GBT has taken everything and now can utilize everything, all your thoughts, everything, and give you an amazing essay, beautiful, intricate drawings, but they're not real. They're not genuine. They're basically man-made. It's all man-made. And what makes it worse when it's chat GBT, there is no soul, there's no heart, there's no consciousness behind that. It's just a thing. It's just an it, but yet we will be drawn into using that. All of us will be drawn into using it, like we're using all search engines now and ask a question to Google, and it's inevitable. It's very similar, really, to your computer program that you have called the brain. Very similar. Whereas at one time you used to go to the brain and ask it a question, it would give you an answer. That is probably 95%, or some could argue 99% of our daily routine. So fascinating when you think about it. So the question lies is what kind of percentage do we use when we actually try and attune to the real voice within the consciousness, the soul, the connection to our spirit world that moves and vibrates through this consciousness that we are, not the spacesuit, not the brain computer. But do you do it while you're driving in a car? Do you do it while you're sat down under a tree? Do you do it while you're cleaning? Can you multitask? Most men like me can't walk and chew chewing gum at the same time. So, but when women or men are cleaning, are you thinking about the deeper question? I often find myself when I'm healing or when I'm meditating or when I'm at peace, real peace, the most beautiful thoughts and I guess self-realizations and these moments of wonder come to me. Very rarely do I get any deep downloads when I'm angry or sad or in grief or in a low place. When we are in a very, very, very low place, there can be interventions by what I believe either our higher self or the spirit world or the other world that we come from. And I remember, handling a whole load of, I didn't even know what they were because I used to clear out houses and I used to get these boxes of tablets and throw them away. And I remember going into the back of the auction house and there were some tablets on the floor, which were meant to be disposed of properly, as we used to do. And I just grabbed them and just threw them all in my mouth because I just wanted to die. I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't think there was anything worth living for. And I remember falling to the floor And I remember I was just dripping. My spit was coming out. I was crying like mad. And I heard this overwhelming voice saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You're about to take your life. You're about to leave this world. For what?" And, it's that moment where that self-realization hits you, and that overwhelming feeling that is far more powerful than depression or anxiety or suicidal thoughts. And I think we've been hijacked personally. I think we've been hijacked for many years to not hear that voice when we need that voice the most. I think we've been hijacked on purpose. So we do destroy ourselves. We do hijack ourselves by way of a little push and a nudge by the very darkness that sees how we are easily manipulated through AI technology, through suffering from day to day, through the non-practice of love, kindness, and understanding, through having no tools to navigate through life when we are most challenged. And we revert back to our parents, what we've learned at school from teachers, and that is very limited and it's very destructive most of the time. So it's fascinating. All the subject we talk about tonight, all of them we're gonna deep dive into is where are you going? It's a great question. Where are you going? We're going to look at the question, why are you here? Brilliant question. And what is your purpose? And how should you live? All of these questions are probably one of the most top asked questions of humanity, no matter who you are. One thing I would like to start with the above questions is the word rush. Rush. I think the word rush is an interesting word. It's connected to deadline, the deadline. It's also connected to time. And whenever you are programmed in this world to time, it's never connected to time off or meditation. Time is not ever associated with peace. Time has been manipulated. The word time has been manipulated for you to believe that there's not enough time. And not having enough time is also very similar to not having enough wealth or not having enough of anything. So when a lot of us look at the deep questions, it's been hijacked because we're in a rush. And when you're in a rush, you never get to see anything because you're too busy in a rush. You're trying to, get to your work. You're trying to get home. And it's almost like the time that you have is on a negative rather than a positive. And quite rightly so. You have 2 weeks off a year, a few days here and there. And when you get home at 5 o'clock, most of your energy has been taken from you because obviously from 9 to 5 is exactly how corporations work. They want to use their slaves at the most productive time, basically. How strong is your energy? What time does your energy start and what time does it stop getting weaker and weaker. We want your most powerful energy. So these are the things that we have to look at and we have to take into consideration. And we all live in a world where we have to keep the wolves from the door. We have to work, of course we do. But partly what I found in my life and a lot of my clients is that they decided to find their own time. They decided to take control and own their own time. And I saw a huge difference in a lot of people. A lot of people I saw fail and collapse very badly because they couldn't control time. They couldn't understand it in any way. And they opened a business and shut down because they just weren't business people. A lot of people I noticed took part-time work instead of full-time work. That seemed to work really well. That was wonderful. I saw a lot of people get a lot of moments of downloads in part-time work because the time that they worked, and which is part-time, the rest of the time was for them to find themselves. So that was fascinating. Also, the other thing that I find fascinating as well is rarely do we see before we are shown, right? Rarely. So we have to be shown something to think about that, to work out what that was. But I think the real purpose of life is to see things without being shown. Because I think that the intervention of being shown is that what is the harder path. So I need to understand and feel and experience before I'm shown it. And then whenever that comes along, it's never as traumatic, if you understand. What I mean is if I'm with people who have been through breakdowns or breakups of marriage, and I've spent time with them seeing what they've been through, if it ever comes to my life, when it comes into my life, I have an understanding of what that is. I felt it, but not the same as my friends who were crying, but I felt their pain and I could see what was happening between the two. And I used to be a kind of intermediate for my friends who would split up from their wives. And a lot of the times the man would get angry and said, "I'm make sure she's not going to get anything," and all that. And I'd say, "No, don't say that. Don't be silly. Don't be silly. Don't be silly. Don't do that. I mean, this is the woman that you love. Yeah, but she's done this and she's gone off with another man." I said, "Yeah, but you still loved her. And at the end of the day, don't walk away in anger and rage. Don't do that. There's a reason why this is happening. And you'll only understand in a few years from now. But I promise you, in a few years from now, you'll look back and you'll be thankful." And 99% of the time with clients as well, I'll see them now and say, "How's life?" And they'll go, "Mark, honestly, I can't tell you how wonderful it is." And I'm like, "Could you see yourself back with your wife?" And they go, "No." And I said, "So that pain and suffering that you went through, if you knew then what you know now, do you think you would have suffered the same?" "No, I wouldn't." "Okay, so whatever you go through in life, if you can just embrace those tools, right? If you can embrace that feeling and that knowing, that spiritual knowledge, then no matter what hits you and comes your way, you know that in the future, something beautiful will happen." And it always does. Now, what I did find in life and what I did notice is that there is a small percentage who hold on to the suffering and never let it go. So that guy who said she's never going to get anything, I'm going to ruin her, she's never going to have any money, blah, blah, blah. That guy stayed the same till the day I kind of met him, because he was living the same experience day after day after day. Something in that, there's something very powerful in that. So if we don't let go of anger and rage, then we actually manifest in that every single moment. So it never goes. It's always with us. And that brings another whole load of issues, which is illness, sickness, disease. So even if you're angry with your partner and you have thoughts about your partner that you're still upset with, or a child that doesn't speak to you anymore, or somebody in business who hurt you, if you hold on to that and still hate that person, then you can't ever truly move on with your life. You can't. You're in that energy and it sits in you and it causes illness and sickness. And there is no room for love, kindness, and excitement and joy, because the limit you have is the energy of anger, rage, bitterness, jealousy, hate. All of these things limit you to be able to move. It's almost like you're a vessel, but you're trapped in that vessel, because that hate is a lid, that jealousy is a lid, that suffering is a lid. You can't receive anything. Nothing comes in until you just say, okay, I'll let that go. And you let it go because aren't you, if I ask you this, if you suffer with any of those low energies, if I ask you this question, do you think you are worth more than the issue that you're angry with? Meaning that if you found out you had cancer tomorrow, and I said to you, well, that cancer happened because you held on to the hate or the jealousy or the anger of whatever the situation was with somebody else. If you knew that, if I said to you, you know, this is because you're sick now because of this, the reason why you haven't met anybody, the reason why things have gone wrong is because of you, not because of them. Because you weren't strong enough to let it go. You haven't been strong enough to let it go. And you have to find a way to let it go. And once you've let all your suffering go, then that's when miracles come in. And funnily enough, that's when you find out where you're going. You can never find out where you're going at all until you have let go of all the suffering that you've been through. You will never know why you're here until you've let go of all your suffering and all that causes you any negative thoughts. I don't care whether you've done something wrong to somebody, whether you cheated on somebody, whether you, I don't know, whether you did something too much for somebody and you feel stupid. It doesn't matter, any of those things. You'll never know how to live unless you let go of everything. Look, your path, your life, the most beautiful thing in the world that could ever be said, which nobody believes because they just don't feel that they can touch it. They don't feel that they can create it. They don't feel worthy of it. But that is the word change. And change is a fantastic, fantastic word, because at any given moment, your life can change. And this is a key point to what I'm talking about. You'll never change if you're sat in the same pain or suffering. And change can only come in when you open that lid. And when you open it and let it go, then everything comes in. It's amazing. When we look at, we'll just move off on this subject and look at this idea or this notion of thinking too much instead of living. That is also a really challenging hurdle, because most people are just thinking day, night, morning, afternoon, thinking all the time. Now, thinking has nothing to do with connecting to the truth. Thinking is just merely the computer brain, and it's creating this story. It's illusion, delusion. That's all it is. It's limited. And I often say to people, when you cross the road, what do? Well, your brain kicks in because you've been programmed to look left and right. You probably aren't doing it correctly anyway, because you will probably cross the road sometimes because you don't hear any traffic. But the problem with that is that when you start crossing the road, there's a push bike that's coming at 40 miles an hour and smashes into you. Oh dear, I didn't think about that. No, you didn't. So the thought process is limited. The consciousness kicks in and says, hey, Mark, there's a push bike coming. And that's when a lot of you think, Jesus Christ, I could have got frigging killed there. Why you didn't get killed is because your consciousness is that what is actually the true purpose of life. Living in harmony with this spacesuit connected to the consciousness that gives us the right information. It saves us. It heals us. It loves us. And I'm talking about the spacesuit. It loves the spacesuit. It loves this spacesuit because it's part of the spacesuit. They come together like hand in glove. So you can't separate them unless you want to separate them to explain something, but they work together. And when the spacesuit is no longer and it's deteriorated, then the consciousness leaves. And it may come back into another spacesuit, or it may stay or go to another part of this universe and live a life within whatever the spacesuits are there. So it's fascinating. I like, it's a little bit corny, but I like the idea of taking action. And the reason why is because sometimes we are lazy. Sometimes we forget because of too many thoughts that get in the way of taking action. Some of the most amazing people that I watch daily are the ones that put one foot after another and never stop. Nothing ever stops them. Doesn't matter what people say about them. Doesn't matter what people try to do to them. Doesn't matter. They just one step after another. They just keep going. And you realize that we are caught up in our own self-sabotage by way of a few rotten apples being thrown at us, or tomatoes by, people that just enjoy doing that. And we get caught up in that. So you understand this concept of 1,000 people loving you, one person hating you, and yet one person has more power than the 1,000 people loving you. That is a real, it's a real issue for all of us, because it's almost like we don't even look at the fact that somebody might like us or care for us. That's not important. But we look at people who hate us, who attack us, because we feel that energy is far more important. So I always remember saying something, and somebody online once says, well, Mark, that's because you're listening to the wrong people. And I'm like, that is so true. Who am I listening to? Who do you listen to? And we tend to, because of our childhood, because of the trauma that we've been through, because of the system programming, it deliberately wants us to separate. It wants us to have differences. It wants us to recognize those differences. And it wants us to bring ego into our life, to say that we're better than somebody else, or we are more intelligent than somebody else. We're labeling every day. We're judging every day. And that's what darkness loves. That's what it's created. That is part of the illusion. It wants us to believe that we are all completely different. And when you look at it on a brain level, we are all different. For sure we are, because we are on our own journey and path. But there's not much that you've been through that somebody you've argued with hasn't. If you sit down together and spend time, I remember two lads at my school hated each other. And then they became best friends and they were inseparable. Why do you think that is? Because sometimes we see in others that we don't want to see in ourselves. And then we realize, wow, we're more similar than what we thought. So when we see somebody doing something awful, we get upset and angry and we hate them. And yet, if we have that moment to sit down and look at ourselves, sometimes we'll realize that, whoa, I think I'm a little bit like that. And the reason why I'm angry with him is because I'm pushing that very thing away that I don't want to face inside myself. Fascinating, isn't it? Fascinating. Try new things. Where are you going? Well, if you sat on your ass, you ain't going anywhere. But if you try new things, you'll find that it'll take you to where you're going. It will give you the answers to why you are here now. And it'll tell you what your purpose is. Why? Because you take action. Same as one step after another. Keep going, keep going. The fact that you keep going in life is a real issue to darkness. It wants you to stay at home. It wants you to hate everybody. It wants you to say, I'm different from everybody. Nobody understands me. The darkness smiles when it does that, when you do that. It loves it. But also this wonderful concept of being in stillness. I love this concept, being in stillness, but not in the mind. Being in stillness, but not in the mind. And that is something that I only learned as I became a healer. I only learned this when I was going to circle nights and learning how to heal people that I'd never met before through distant healing. And when you're in that stillness, you automatically start exercising a muscle, this consciousness that starts to listen, and the consciousness that starts to awaken. Because the consciousness, I think sometimes I feel that ourselves just shut down. Our consciousness shuts down. And it's a partnership. If we don't use this body correctly and tell our minds to be still and listen to the consciousness that kicks in, then we'll always be in battle between the heart and mind. And the greatest battle in this world is between the heart and mind. Fascinating. How many people live in the mind? How many people go for a walk and never actually look at anything? No. When did you ever stop when you went for a walk and just looked around you and looked in the moment? I'm sorry, but I don't see it. I see people rushing, rush. So I am talking about rushing. We're always rushing. Talking about time. Never enough time. Got all the time in the world, mate. No, I haven't. Yes, you have. You've just created that in your mind. It's an illusion. You know, I've got through my partner, the family of my partner, I find fascinating. They're both in high corporate jobs, really high up, and they work so hard. And yet I've never seen a couple with their children have as much fun and have more activities. They go skiing. They travel all over the place. They go for walks all the time. The kids are always doing like 30 different types of sports all the time. Every night there's another. Wow. So it's not about how many hours you work per se. It's about what you do with the quality of what you've got. the quality of that moment that you've got for yourself. Most people actually don't really use that quality moment. Most of us just scroll. Most of us just do nothing. And thus we become very much like the Tin Man. We get rusty and we don't do anything. And then anything that is mentioned, we just say, no, don't want to do it. No, no, I can't. No. And then we get into the very essence of pure darkness that loves you for that, because you are not what you're meant to be, and you're not doing what you should be doing. There should be, I mean, when you sit meditating, you're doing something. You're doing something very powerful. You're healing your body in so many levels. You have no idea. If I could show you what you look like when you are meditating, you would see your whole energy shift, and colors would change, and your mind will start to heal. And I see like energy moving to certain places in the body, and I call them like fish coming and clearing, which they can't normally because your mind is too active. You can only do it in the stillness. That's why in the stillness you find your answers. So it's very much like exercise. After you've stimulated yourself through exercise, when you've exercised for an hour or two, you find that at some point afterwards, you'll hit this beautiful place where you feel at peace. There's some harmony. There's some stillness. When you don't exercise, it's because your body is asking you to exercise. So then your mind starts fighting with you, and then you start fighting with your mind, and you don't exercise, and then you get into a routine of not doing anything. And then you wonder why people get upset, sad, suicidal, or they get depression, they get anxiety. It's because they're not exercising. I guarantee you 99% of people who exercise and exercise regularly are far less likely to get suicidal thoughts, depression, and anxiety. There's just something in exercise that stimulates the body to create certain electricity, and also creates the physical body to create chemicals that heal the whole of the body. Heal by way of healing muscles, by healing joints, by healing eyes, fingers, legs, brain. So important, but we just, I'll do it tomorrow. Forget it. I'll do it another day. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's okay. Just have another cake. Just have another cup of tea with 3 sugars in. Just have another bun. Just have another chocolate bar. Just have some alcohol. And yet all I've seen in 20 years is people who take action and they go to the gym, or they go for a run or long walks, you know. Then they look back when they stop doing it. I've never spoke to anybody who said, oh yeah, when I exercised, it was dreadful. I've never heard that said, but I have heard said, you know, when I used to exercise, when I used to go to the gym every morning, when I used to go, you know, for walks and do it, I was never better. I was never healthier. So it's kind of not a trick question, is it? Why aren't you doing it anymore? And of course, some people say, well, I'm not the same anymore. I'm a bit older now. And, oh, I had an accident. Well, you can excuse yourself for anything. And like I said, we self-sabotage all the time. Why haven't you exercised today, guys? I'll guarantee you your brain will look for an answer to make it sound like you've got an excuse, which it will be. It'll be an excuse for why you don't do it. And if you say to me it's because of health reasons, that's really sad to hear. It really is sad, because there is no such thing as health reasons to not exercise, no matter where you are. If you're in a wheelchair, you can still exercise. And if I was in a wheelchair, I'd be exercising. I'd be doing as much as I could. So, Oh, well, I've got a bad chest. If I don't, no. If you've got a bad chest, then you should be exercising to strengthen your chest. You should be strengthening that beautiful chest so it's exercising, it's breathing, and it's working. It's working. If you don't work it, then it's going to shut off. I'm not a health expert, but what I have seen in my 20 years is those that really do shine in this world have mind, body, spirit balance. And it's not easy. It's not easy, mind, body, spirit. So if we can utilize at least 2 of those 3, then, we're at least getting somewhere. The body side of it to me is as well as what you're putting into your mouth and what you don't put in your mouth, vital to your health and well-being. And your body will always tell you when you eat shit. It will always tell you when you've put poison in your body, because you'll feel it. Your body it'll get exhausted and it'll want to go to sleep. It wants to rest. It will spurt out spots, or you will get rashes, or you'll get pains, and you'll get fuzziness, and you won't feel yourself. That's because your body's poisoned. So most bodies, 90% of bodies in the world is permanently poisoned. Coca-Cola, sugar, chocolates, it's poisoning you. It's just poison in your body, and your body's fighting that. And every time you do that, your body is going to be in this world much less. The more you look after your body, the body's going to retain everything and live a longer and happier life. It's not rocket science. So if you feel tired, it's because you're eating something that you shouldn't be eating, or drinking something that you shouldn't be drinking. Coffee is a great one. And, look, everybody drinks coffee, but when you stop drinking coffee, you realize you're not tired. After 6 weeks of not drinking coffee, you'll realize that you're not tired through the day or night, and then you'll have a good night's sleep. If you drink coffee, you'll need to drink more, and because it's a pickup, it's a stimulant, and then you'll get exhausted at points through the day or night. Shouldn't be exhausted. The body should never be exhausted. Even if it's lifted tons of things, it shouldn't be exhausted. Shouldn't feel it. It might feel like it's done a lot of work, but it shouldn't feel exhausted. If you feel exhausted, it's because you're basically poisoned. Your body is poisoned. And that's the truth. You won't be told this, but it's the truth. Your body should never feel tired. It shouldn't be tired. So, when we say, oh, been a long, hard day's work, I say it often, but I know it's nothing to do with that. It's because I've probably eaten something that I shouldn't done, or I haven't eaten something that I should have eaten, which is also very important. What we stimulate our body with Mother Nature, fruit and vegetables, that aren't overcooked at all, which should be more raw if possible, and drinking plenty of natural water free from contamination. These are things that are really important. Most of us don't drink enough water through the day. We should be drinking at least a couple of these a day to 3. Oof, not a chance. We might get it. Oh, but I've had a couple of coffees. So how should we live? It's a great question. Do upon others as you would wish upon yourself. I wouldn't serve anybody, a stranger or family, food that I wouldn't serve myself. Your actions should be in the same category. Everything that you do, you would hope that would be reciprocated. So you would do unto others what you would want upon yourself. That's how we should live. If everybody did that, it'd be a wonderful place. Now, I talk about things of this world that are a little bit wacky and way out. Not everybody is like you and I. And I've spent enough time talking about that. And they're not like you and I. So the tools that we have and what I share with you is to also be aware of certain people will not treat you with that same respect. And if they don't treat you with that respect, then it's only at that point where you have to make a decision that out of what they say, 8-9 billion people in this world, you're upset about one person that is insignificant, that you've made significant. Now, you can seem a little bit cold and harsh, but I've seen the repercussions of you taking on board one person that has made you feel bad for 20 years. And shame on you for allowing that to happen. And you will regret it. So it's important that we don't become a punching bag for other people. And also, if we are triggered by people, then it also is up to us to figure out how to resolve that and ask ourselves why we're triggered by that and what we can do to resolve that. Because again, we don't want to do this to people, but then you will always get people that will trigger you. You'll get people who will say nasty things, so then you will fight back. You've got to ask yourself, is it worth your life living in this world with that person? Is it worth it? And I often say it's not. And it's important that we have to understand when we're triggered what that trigger is, why we're triggered, because it might be that something that we need to heal. But even so, it's extremely important that everybody has to acknowledge that as well, because you're triggered for a reason. And if that other person does not understand why you're triggered and they continue triggering you and they don't see themselves as being the trigger, then that's also not right. They have to see, well, why am I triggering you this way? You can't blame it all on you, because hang on a minute, you're triggering a lot of people. You're triggering people all over the place. So you are triggering people, and now I'm sat talking to you and you're triggering me. I'm like, but hang on a minute. Yeah, I'm triggered by what you're saying, but you're also triggering tons of people. So maybe that it might be the way you are, and it might be that you just don't communicate, or there might be a difference of where you've come from or whatever it is. But the point is that you have to come to a point in your life and say, is this worth living? Am I always going to be triggered this way? And if you both don't resolve that, which most of the time two don't, one might, but two don't, then it's a punch bag one way or another, and it hurts two people. So how should we live? We should live in peace and harmony. And if we are triggered by people, I always say it's better to walk away. Are you triggered by everybody? No. So you're triggered by who? This one person. Okay, well, maybe if they're triggering you all the time, maybe it's time to walk away, because you don't seem to be able to resolve that. So there's nothing wrong with walking away with love, not with anger, but saying, look, I just get triggered. And I don't think you understand that you're triggering me. And you don't see that you trigger me, and yet you continue to trigger me. So you are not taking responsibility at all. You just keep doing it, and then you keep blaming me or you for being triggered. So we have to find people that we are comfortable with and love and understand each other. And if there are times where there's a challenge and struggle and we can work through it, then that's the most beautiful thing. But I've seen too many relationships hold on for years, and I see the age of that person after 6 months, they look 5 years older than what they should have done. So how should you live? You should live in harmony and peace and balance, and you should not be triggered, and people should not trigger you. And that is a very difficult part of how you should live. it's this trigger that we need to find out what it is and resolve, because a lot of the times it's deep within us and we're triggered by little things of our past because of what our mother or father did to us, and we're triggered by them things. And it's something that we need to look at deeply. What is your purpose in life? It's one of the biggest questions in the world. I often say that your purpose is exactly where you are right now and what you're doing. That is your purpose right now. Your brain will tell you otherwise, but your purpose is called experiencing life. And to experience life, you have to experience times of lack, which then teaches you the value of wealth. Sometimes you have to experience loneliness to teach you the value of being with somebody and the joy of that, and so on. So when you say, oh, nothing's happening, well, that's because you're now going to go through a point where once you've experienced that, then something will happen, and then you'll be able to measure it and understand it and feel it. So I believe that your purpose is exactly what you're doing. There has never been, in my opinion, when I've been healing people and giving them healing just before they move into their home world, there is a thunderbolt moment, thunderbolt strike. It's like something just hits them, and they normally say, I just never knew. And I never really truly understand that. But what I did notice, it was never with a negative face or a solemn face or shit, I wish I'd have done that, or I wish I'd have known that. No, what my feeling is when they say that, it's like, I think that's where this came out of. I remember, I'm not going to say his name, but I remember him just saying, I just never knew. I just didn't know. And it was like he was saying, what I've just seen about my whole life, I didn't realize. I didn't realize what I'd done. I didn't realize the effect that I had on humanity. And it was all positive. So the guy had done some bad things. He did some brilliant things, but it wasn't like that moment where, oh my God, I'm going to hell. It was just a realization of everything, and it was beautiful. And it was almost like that was the moment where he could finally feel liberated, free, to be able to say, I'm ready now, I'm ready to go. Because that's what happened after a healing session when you're moving into your home world, vibrating into your home world. If you're a healer and you give healing to the head and the heart, and you just stay there for an hour, then this self-realization comes, and this miracle of understanding their life. We call them like images that are millions of images within a matter of a second just come, and all of this just hits your consciousness, and then wow, everything makes sense. Your consciousness kicks in, and then you vibrate home. It's beautiful. So what is your purpose? Every single breath you take is your purpose. Every step you make is your purpose. And the only time it isn't your purpose is when your mind starts to tell you that you haven't done your purpose. Your mind judges and measures everything to everybody else. Look at what he's doing. Look at what she's doing. Look how successful that person is. Look how famous that person is. Look at how everybody loves that. But like, just stop. Just shut up, mind. You know nothing. You're programmed. You're brainwashed. You are limited to everything in this world. So just stop. So to understand that your purpose is exactly who you are and what you're doing is a beautiful thing. It's liberating. It's like moving into the light. You get liberated because you know now what you didn't know before. But it doesn't matter if you didn't know what before. At least you see it, and it's like, wow. It's just like when somebody says, "Oh, you're a lovely person." Do you know why? This and that and the other. Like, do you know, I never saw that in myself. Thanks for that. That's really nice. I didn't. Yeah, now you've mentioned it. Yeah, I am like that a little bit. Oh, thanks. If you even dare accept a compliment, which you've been told not to, and that is because of the dark energy in this world, the dark forces, the weak people who try to stop you from daring to believe in yourself because they don't want people believing in themselves. Evil does not want you to believe in yourself. It wants you to say that you have no purpose. You don't know what your purpose is. You're a fool. You're an idiot. You know nothing. You'll never get anywhere in life. That is the energy of the brain that is programmed. That is the energy of the brain that gets manipulated. You can't manipulate your consciousness. There is no attachment in this world can attach to your consciousness. It can attach to the spacesuit. It can attach to your chakras, but it can't attach to your consciousness. Your consciousness cannot be touched. There's always hope. And your consciousness is that and everything. But you won't believe that. You'll just think it's your body or your eyes and your hands and legs. No, it isn't. That's nothing. That's just a mere grain of sand on the beach. That's all your body is. But your consciousness is the actual ocean. You are the ocean. That little drop of consciousness that is the guiding force within you is everything. All seeing, all powerful, all knowing, and yet you limit yourself to the brain and what it tells you every day instead of really tapping in and talking to your consciousness and letting your consciousness drive you. Let your consciousness take control of your life. Let the balance of the bodysuit and the consciousness work just a little bit more. Just let your consciousness work a little bit more. Let it do what it was meant to do. All right, you've been hijacked. All right, you've been brainwashed. All right, you've been poisoned. All true. But start to unpoison. Start to unlearn the program. Start to unbrainwash yourself. Start to connect to your consciousness, the real you. That would be a great start. So I wanted just to share these few words with you tonight. I hope even if one thing resonates with you tonight and you take it away and take action and do something about it, then I've done my job. If you go away and just keep scrolling and do nothing, then I'm sorry, I didn't do my job tonight. I really didn't. And I just hope that I have helped a little bit to shake you up a little bit and to help you understand that your brain is not what you are being told it is every day and what it's being brainwashed every day by a black screen. Your consciousness is deeply sad. And when you are sad, it's because your consciousness is there saying, hey, I'm here. Hello. So I am wishing you a lovely evening, guys. And let's leave it on a note, a nice note. Let's find something nice. Let's ask and just say, what do we get? Well, this is an interesting card. This is the Tower card. And the Tower card to me is fascinating. As we speak of the brain and we talk about the power of the brain and what we feed the brain, if the brain isn't strong and doesn't have foundations and it's built on sand, then whatever you build in your brain, whatever you input into your brain is meaningless because it's just going to fall to pieces because it's got no foundation. So tonight, I believe this little talk builds some foundation in the brain so you have control of your brain. So you take back the power in your brain and you use the brain for what it's meant to be used for. To cross the road and look left and right, well done. To open your drawers in the morning and get your clothes and put them on to read the books that you read, to sign the contracts that you may need to sign. Thank you. That's what's the brain for. But my brain will not start to interfere with my path. It will not tell me my future because it has no clue and does not understand that. All of those things about my beautiful path and future is always to do with my consciousness. So separate the two and know how to use your brain and when to use your consciousness. If there was ever a more powerful message, I believe right now, that is it. So build foundations in your brain and know limits. Know the limits of your brain, when it should be used. I'm wishing you all an absolutely lovely evening, guys. Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm going to head home and have some lovely quality time to myself. Take care, everybody. Thanks.